So Will and I just planted 2 hazelnut trees today, and so I thought I'd bring you along, kind of show you how we did it. I'll also give you some tips on how to grow and plant hazelnut trees, so stay tuned. A lot of people are familiar with hazelnuts, and that's probably because of a chocolatey delicious nut spread known as Nutella. So hazelnuts are a delicious nut. They do very well in the Pacific Northwest. Oregon is probably the biggest production state here in the United States. And one of the reasons they do so well is they actually like our climate a lot. The amount of rain that we get, they don't like to be dry at all. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. They are a fantastic nut for nutrition as well. A lot of people don't realize that hazelnuts are actually very high in antioxidants. I've heard that they're up to 9 times more antioxidant in a hazelnut than in a chocolate bar. So that might encourage you, the anti-aging effects of it. I've also heard it helps with cardiovascular health, brain health. Nuts in general are just fantastic for those things, and hazelnuts are no exception. With hazelnut trees, you do need preferably 2 or more hazelnut trees for cross-pollination. Apparently they can self-pollinate, but it's really best if you have at least 2 hazelnut trees. And not all hazelnut trees are compatible when it comes to cross-pollination. So when you buy one, do talk to someone, either if you're buying at a nursery, talk to the people at the nursery, or online you ask questions, and make sure that whatever 2 varieties you get, they are compatible. I have, this one here is my dog's. This one here is the Jefferson, which is a very popular variety. And then I have over there the Yamhill, which is a really heavy producer. And so those 2 are cross-pollination compatible. So just make sure to check into that. Plant hazelnuts anywhere from fall to spring sometime. Probably should have planted these a little bit sooner, but we were kind of low on time. Hi, buddy. Burnt Ridge Nursery is by far the best nursery in the area, especially for, like I said, the perennials. I know they have a lot of other things, but they definitely carry your berries, your fruit trees, nut trees. They do, it's just a fantastic job. It's local, right outside of Onalaska, so it's about 30 minutes from my house. There they are.
You just need to get out of the pot, so I'm just gonna squeeze around the edges to loosen it, and it should just lift right out. So the hole is about 2 feet wide and a foot deep. We'll loosen the soil a little bit on the bottom, just for good root growth.
So we usually loosen a little bit of that root ball. It's kind of hard to do because it's really root bound right now. It's been in that pot for quite a while. I don't know how old this one is, but I'm guessing 3 or 4 years old maybe, by how tall it is. They actually say that if you prune the root system just a smidge, it actually encourages growth of the plant. So we're mixing in a little bit of this topsoil and compost mix with the native soil. Actually, hazelnuts don't like a lot of amending. They actually do pretty well in poor soil. It's a pretty easy grower, but they don't like a lot of amending. So we're not going to add a ton of this material. We're just adding enough to finish filling it in. So hazelnuts don't do well with any sort of drought, which is probably why they do very well here in the Pacific Northwest, because we get so much rain that they don't have any issue with drying out. But just in case, I know that there was a few people that mentioned keeping kind of a indent around the tree to kind of encourage that moisture. The water will pool around and make sure it's well watered. Honestly, we get so much rain here. This lower part of our property will get really boggy, and so I don't actually want it to be sitting in too much water. So I'm actually going to fill this up just a little bit more to make sure that it won't get too much water. Now, if you don't prune a hazelnut or train a hazelnut tree, they will tend to be shrubs. They'll start producing shoots out from the bottom, and they'll just turn into a really big bush. That's pretty actually common. A lot of people just leave them as bushes, but I actually want to train this into a tree, and you can. And in fact, Burnt Ridge Nursery has already trained it into a tree so far. So they've got most of the work out of the way, but I'm just going to prune this down now to continue to keep it at a tree. Also, It is recommended, and this is true for almost all fruit and nut trees, when you plant it, it's good to prune the tree down a little bit. The reason for that is when you've planted it in the soil, oftentimes there's some root damage, or maybe you've had to prune some of those roots. So there's not as much root capacity for absorbing water and nutrients to fill and be able to encourage growth in all this long tree. So by pruning it down, you make it so that it's not overwhelmed by suddenly having to get nutrients up to those shoots. Instead, it can focus on that growth of the root system, and it won't end up shocking it or killing it. So I just pruned this back. It was kind of hard to show because my camera wasn't really focusing on this. I'm not really going to give instructions on how to prune. I don't have a ton of experience pruning small trees. I'm better with the bigger trees. But basically what I did was there's a long shoot right here, and I just trimmed that back, and I just shortened all this. I lopped off little sections that looked dead, anything that looked diseased, and then I just kind of shortened the whole thing, trimmed off little bits here. And then every year I'll just do a little bit of pruning and keep it into the shape of a tree that I'd like it to. So if you live anywhere in the Pacific Northwest, I highly recommend looking at Oregon State University. They have great resources on hazelnut trees. I mean, they gave me way more information than I needed to know. So I'm gonna actually include that link down below so you can look that up. It goes anywhere from planting a full orchard to nutrition needs and pruning and all of that. So I'll leave that link down below, but that's where I got most of my information on the hazelnut trees. I think my biggest pest is gonna be this little guy. Right? Right? You wanna start digging around this? So I just wanted to show the solution I have for keeping my dogs from tearing out the bark or digging too much around the trees. I just put this wiring around it, stuck these wove them through and pushed them into the soil, and we'll see. Hopefully that'll keep them out of it. Thanks for joining me today. I hope that you learned a lot from this video. Please be sure to subscribe and go out and grow some things. God bless.